Hello there, and welcome back to the railway. Before we get into today's video, I'm just going to apologise for a bit of confusion with the uploads. The video I uploaded on the Friday that's just been was video number 34. It wasn't a mistake. This video was supposed to come out beforehand, and I'd already got most of the clips for it done and edited. And then when I came to start my uploading procedure for that video, the files for those videos got corrupted, so I've had to rejig this video around a bit, which took me a bit longer. So that's why the videos this week, this one's going out on the Wednesday, and the one that came out on the Friday, that's why the numbers are mixed up between those two. From now on, I'm going to try and make sure that they're all in the right order. But anyway, so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you my progress in making some rocks using plaster Paris and some rock moulds, which I'll put on the screen for you later on. So to make the rock work, I used this bag of plaster of Paris from Hobbycraft. I thought that I would have used a lot more of the bag than I did, but I ended up having, I believe, 2 tubs worth of leftover that I can then use for later projects further down the line. It gave you all the instructions on the packaging that I needed for the consistency that I needed it to be. I should have really listened to it, because when I was making it, I looked and thought it was too runny, so I added more and more plaster Paris into the mixture, which made it very, very thick, which I thought it should be. But when I was actually then putting that into the moulds, in hindsight, I realised why it was the mixture that it told me to. The rock moulds that I used for this process were the Woodland Scenics rock moulds. I'll put them on the screen here. C1233 and C1230. These were very easy to. There was the one of them I definitely preferred more than the other one, as one of them was a lot made thinner rock work, whereas the other one made a lot deeper rock work, which you'll see later on in the video. While I was mixing together the water and the plaster of Paris, I added in some of this raw umber, C1221 from Woodland Scenics. I used this so that the plaster of Paris, the rock work basically wouldn't have a bright white finish to it on the inside. In hindsight, as you'll see from these pictures here, I probably should have put a bit more in, because it's kind of like a pale cream or pale brown, very pale brown colour that's turned out to be. One thing I hadn't taken into consideration when I started making these rocks was that the moulds weren't perfectly level. So I had to prop up some of the areas on the mould with these bits of grey board that I had left over, just so that the plaster of Paris would set at as smooth of a level as it could. And this worked a lot better on one of the moulds than it did on the other, because the one, as I said, the one mould was a lot deeper than the other, and I'll show you that later on. In this picture here, you can see the tub that I was using. I was just stirring it up and gradually adding in more water and more plaster Paris as and when I needed it, and again then adding in the pigment colour as well, just to make sure it stayed the colour and consistency that I was after. Now this picture here is a prime example as to why you follow the instructions it gives you on the plaster Paris mould. Because I made the mixture too thick, well, thicker than it recommended, the second mould, as you can see on the right hand side, it had started to set as I was pouring it in, so it was a lot thicker to try and smoothen out. So as you can see on the left, it's a really nice smooth finish on the surface, whereas on the right it's a much rougher finish, because I was trying to smoothen it out and get it to the same level of smoothness as the one on the left, but because it was so thick, it was sticking to the tool that I was using to smoothen it out with. But at the end of the day, it came out to a reasonable success, with all the pieces of rockwork being easily removed from the mould. Well, I say easily removed. Some of the ones on the deeper, thicker mould were a lot harder to remove. But yeah, so you can see here there's a few air pockets and bubbles that formed in some of them, which you'll see as I'm taking them out. But that's just, I might make another batch of these if I want to at some point, to try and improve upon these ones, but for now these will do. As you can see here, some of them were quite difficult trying to get out, mainly the ones that were deeper. This one broke in half as I was taking it out, and I hadn't necessarily noticed, But yeah, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. It doesn't look like much of it's broken off. So, but yeah, so all it then took was, after taking these out from the moulds, just need to smooth down some of the edges and make sure it's then there's no rough edges on them, so it's hopefully all smooth and flat. So here you'll see the ones from this mould were a lot more difficult to remove, with them being so much thicker and deeper, because the mould itself was wrapped so tightly around the rockwork. It just made it so tight trying to get it out. But nevertheless, they all came out eventually in the end. Some of them took a little bit more persuasion on this one. But yeah, so these ones mostly will need some sanding or some filing, just to smoothen out the bottom of them. Now the next step in my process was to add a wash to the rockwork. Now I used this kit from Woodland Scenics, number C1215 Earth Colours kit. Now this contains 8 little liquid pigment pots, which you'll just see on the screen there. And it just follows the instructions basically. It gives you ideas on which colours to use as the main pigment, and then which ones to use as a secondary colour to add on afterwards. So what I did was used I think it was the grey slate, which I then used a pipette to remove from the jar, put a little bit on my mixing palette, which I use mostly for my artwork and painting that I've been doing recently. And then what I then do, once I've got enough of it on there, is I then open up the water pot to the left of me. Once the lid of that's off, I'll then put the pipette in there and take some of the water up, just like so. Also good to rinse out the pipette as well while you're doing this. I found rinsing out the pipette using a bit of washing up liquid in the water after you've finished all the colour mixing is very efficient at cleaning out the pipette. So yeah, the watercolour, it wasn't dirty, it's just because I've already done some of the pigment colours already. So that's just it's the same colour in the water, it's not dirty water. So no, then it's just mixing up the pigment with the water, so you get a nice consistency all the way through, so it's not too thick in some spots and not thick enough in others. What I then use is this brush here, foam brush, which they provide in the Earth Colours kit, which I showed you at the start of this section. All it is then is just dabbing on the foam brush and just adding in the water pigment wherever you feel it's necessary. And the way it works as well, with it being a watery paint pigment, is that it flows through all the rockwork and all the cracks in the rockwork as well. So you'll find it settles in the grooves of the rockwork and gives them a much darker shade. There's the date of the newspaper if anyone's interested. But yeah, I found as well, while adding this the pigment on, I did 2 layers on every rock. As you can see, the rock on the left of this picture has already had its second layer applied, and it does make it a lot darker, which I did like quite a lot. I was originally going to add a second colour over the top of this, but I've decided against that for now. I might do at some point later on, but I just thought I like the way they look at the moment. So what I was then doing was adding the pigment direct from the bottle, so it's a lot thicker at this point, onto the rockwork, just to add some contrast in details then you've got some really, really dark patches on the surface, rather than it just being the grooves that are differentiated in the colour, which I think worked really effectively, and you'll see that as well in some of the other rocks that I painted up as well. So just making sure as well that I've gone around every angle and every side of the rock, just to make sure I've not missed anything. So here are all the rocks completed, and here they are on the layout, roughly in place. They're not fixed down at all yet, but it's just gives me a rough idea as to where they might be going, and it gives us a nice look going along as well. These ones here are going to be tucked up further, so it's close, and I just couldn't leave them like that because they keep rocking outwards, like you've just seen that one do. So yeah, when those will all be then glued along, glued to the side of the the flat side of the paper mache. And then what I'll then do is, if there's any gaps in between that I want to fill up, I can then use some filler that I've got. I'll then use some filler in this gap here as well. But yeah, so once all that's done, I've got a little bit of gap up here and here, which I'm hoping I can break that one in half and try and put that there. And I've got another one here that I might then break up as well and put pieces of it along. I had tried to break this one up and thought, oh, it was because I thought it was quite big, trying to use the size of this one as it is, because it's way too tall for anything along this embankment. So I tried, as you can see here, using a chisel, thinking putting that on there and using a hammer would then break it in half really easily. But all it did, because I had it on this flat surface, hammered it in, and all it did was shattered the edge of it off. So that's going to take some rethinking as to how I'm going to try and break that in half, but we'll get there in the end. So I've got this one here as well, which I haven't used. This is the one that was really, really rough, so that's possibly going to end up in the bin as well, because it's got all these air pockets as well, which I'm not really happy with. But nevertheless, thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed. Again, I apologise for the way that the videos have been released. I originally had footage of me actually mixing together the rocks, the plaster Paris to try and make the rock effect. But yes, although that footage was lost, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider giving me subscribing to the channel. And if indeed you've enjoyed the video, give it a like. And any suggestions or comments that you have, please feel free to let me know down in the comments section down below. So thank you for watching. The next video hopefully will be coming out on Friday, and that will be the review of my new Class 66 locomotive, which you can see in the station area there, next to the Pendolino and the Class 47. Thank you for all of your support with these review videos. It's taken a bit of time trying to iron out any kinks that are in the editing process, but hopefully I'll gradually start perfecting it one day. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.